Friends, you have been waiting for this issue for a long time, and I assure you, it will definitely not leave you indifferent. What we have prepared for you today will turn all ideas about geopolitics upside down. Secrets that no one dares to voice, unexpected twists, and real games of big players. All in one video. Are you ready to find out how the rules actually change? Then hold on tight. It's going to be exciting. Federal TV channels suddenly decided to put aside their usual stories about the country's great achievements and cede the airwaves to Vladimir Putin. Is this an unexpected twist? Not at all, because the date is not easy, the anniversary of the special operation. This means that the moment for the speech was chosen with the utmost precision. However, this time the usual monologue did not happen. The president did not broadcast from a luxurious hall with golden curtains, but instead sat opposite Pavel Zarubin, a well-known Kremlin journalist. Of course, he asked the most unexpected questions. Just listen to this. But do the Europeans, in your opinion, generally understand the essence of the current situation around a well-known country? Well, you have to ask them that. Judging by their actions, it seems to me that they don't really understand. But that's not even the point. Unlike the new US president, European leaders are too deeply biased by the current situation. They have talked too much and promised too much, and now they find themselves in a position where it is almost impossible to change their position without serious reputational losses. And given their difficult domestic political situation and pressure from parliaments, it becomes almost impossible for them to change course. In addition, the current head of the Kiev regime is becoming an increasingly toxic figure for the armed forces of a well-known country. He gives ridiculous orders that are dictated not by strategic considerations, but by political ambitions. This leads to unjustifiably large losses and, to be precise, to catastrophic losses among the military. As a result, it becomes toxic not only for the army, but also for society as a whole. This is confirmed by the vote in the parliament, during which the extension of his powers was discussed. Now he has driven himself into a dead end. The negotiation process was completely curtailed on his initiative, but the main problem is that he does his best to avoid any attempts to resume the dialogue. Why? Because starting negotiations would inevitably lead to the lifting of martial law. And as soon as that happens, there will be a need to hold elections. After all, elections in a well-known country are not being held precisely under the pretext of martial law. If negotiations begin and martial law is lifted, then the current head of the regime will inevitably have to participate in the elections. And here the main challenge awaits him. The point is not even what his real rating is, but that, according to our data, it is exactly 2 times lower than that of his potential competitor. And this competitor is Mr. Zaluzny, the former commander-in-chief of the armed forces of a well-known country, who was hastily sent to London. If we take into account the possible support of Zaluzny from other political forces, then the chances of the current regime winning tend to 0. Of course, unless there is some kind of crude attempt at falsification. But even in this case, the consequences for him will be extremely unpleasant. Thus, the head of the regime becomes a factor of instability for both his own country and its allies. President Trump probably understands this and, apparently, is pushing him to hold elections. His goal is probably to stabilize the political situation in a certain country, unite society, and create conditions for its continued existence. And, remarkably, this step will be useful not so much for Russia as for the most famous country. In addition, Trump has already explicitly stated that he intends to achieve a peaceful settlement. Well, we're for it too, and the sooner the better. But here's the rub: the current head of the Kiev regime stands in the way of achieving this goal. As for the European leaders, they continue to insist on Kiev's unconditional support. But if they are so concerned about the future of a well-known country, why don't they demand a report from its authorities? However, they cannot demand anything from Russia, no matter how much they would like it. Let them first deal with what has been demanded of them for centuries. And now they are being demanded of them, and a lot of them. So maybe they should stay at home for a while and think about it carefully. Now relations will develop between Russia and the United States. The United States once again urges the president of a well-known country to sign an agreement on rare earth metals, promising this as compensation for the assistance provided by the previous Biden administration. How do you assess the possibility of such an agreement? It has nothing to do with us. I don't even want to think about it. Of course, it would be possible to assess how real these resources are, how many they are, and what their cost is, but I repeat, this is not our task. But what concerns us directly is what was discussed at the last meeting. They talked about rare metals, which are extremely important resources for the modern economy, and also about the fact that we have not done enough in this area yet and must do more. The purpose of today's meeting was to focus resources for further work on this issue. By the way, we are ready to offer cooperation to our American partners, and I mean not only government agencies but also private companies if they show interest. It is important to note that we have significantly more reserves of these metals than in a well-known country. Russia is one of the world's leading players in rare earth metals reserves. These resources are located in Murmansk, the Caucasus, Kabardino-Balkaria, the Far East, the Irkutsk region, Yakutia, and Tuva. These are huge investment projects that may be of interest to foreign partners, including American ones. Also, speaking of new territories, we are ready to attract foreign partners to work with us in these territories that have been returned to the Russian Federation. There are also significant resources there, and we are open to cooperation, including with the Americans. As for the proposal to reduce defense budgets, which was made, for example, in relation to China, we are not against it. The idea looks reasonable. If the United States had cut its spending by 50%, we might have followed suit, and China could have joined if it wanted to. We believe that this proposal deserves attention and are ready to discuss it. The end of Vladimir Putin's speech. Friends, this play unfolds according to a well-known scenario, and let's look at it in more detail. The first scene, rare earths and the United States, again sharing something with a famous country. While Moscow is quietly drinking tea and not worried. Why be nervous? We have plenty of these metals. If you want to buy, please, if you don't want to, go into the woods. Russia is not a charitable organization. We are participants in a tough market where trading is always appropriate, but without illusions about free bonuses. Further along the script, Zelensky, a political adventurer who stubbornly avoids the world because it would mean the end of his political career. As soon as he sits down at the negotiating table, martial law will have to be lifted, and with it, the elections. But what kind of elections are there if Zelensky's rating is falling faster than the snow melts in April? Trump is a different story. Unlike European leaders who can talk beautifully but don't do anything specific, he does things differently. He does what he wants and tells it like it is. Regarding Ukraine, he bluntly declares that it is time to end geopolitical dependence and move on to rehabilitation. It's not irony, it's the harsh truth. Moscow, by the way, is not against the fact that a well-known country retains at least some face in the international arena, but on condition that this face does not threaten Russia. Zelensky is certainly not a gift, but his departure may be a good opportunity for a well-known country. The problem is that Europe doesn't want to put up with this. They've been praising him as a hero for years, and now admitting his political collapse is like saying, "We made a mistake." Therefore, they continue to pretend that everything is going according to plan. But here's a surprise. Moscow has not participated in this performance for a long time and is not going to adapt to other people's demands. If you want to make agreements, come without ultimatums. If you don't want to, good luck portraying great strategists until you receive new instructions. And that's where the fun comes in. Who's running this show anyway? The answer is simple, the rules of the game are changing, and now it's not Russia that has to prove anything, but on the contrary, people come to her with questions and suggestions. She's setting the conditions now. Those who haven't figured it out yet can continue to pretend that everything is under control. However, as practice shows, if Putin says something, it means that the moment has come. As for relations between Moscow and Washington, everything is predictable to the point of boredom. There will be conversations, but not about democratic values and human rights. It's better to leave these fairy tales for school history lessons. It's about hard politics, pure and cynical. An important point. Putin is in no hurry to discuss the Ukrainian issue with Trump. Why? Because adults have more serious things on their agenda. Now, a little bit about brilliant ideas like reducing the military budgets of Russia and the United States by half. It sounds attractive, but this is not a step towards peace, but a direct road to new problems. However, if by some miracle Moscow and Washington find a common language, which in itself resembles fiction, China may also catch up. So far, everything is vague. And here's the news. A certain Mr. Xing hinted to the Kremlin that the Group for Peace in Ukraine is about to gather in New York. Let's see what kind of scene they'll play out there. Now, the most interesting thing, the money. Russia offers the United States 2 million tons of aluminum to stabilize prices. Moscow is even ready to share its deposits, for example, in the Krasnoyarsk territory. But let's not build illusions. The investment, gentlemen, is $15 billion, and then perhaps you will get access to this business. Question: is the United States ready not only to talk about cooperation, but also to really invest? The political drama is unfolding right before our eyes. Putin holds a meeting on rare earth metals, and Trump suddenly remembers that Zelensky will not be able to solve anything without the approval of the Verkhovna Rada. A coincidence? Of course, yes. On the same day, Putin calmly declares that Russia is ready to cooperate in this area, because its reserves of metals are inexhaustible and powerful, like Siberian frosts. It's convenient, isn't it? Now, the most interesting thing is that Russia is not going to collect allies. It's not friends that matter to her, but well-defined interests. The irony is that the United States has been living by the same principle for a long time, only covering it up with loud words about freedom and democracy. And that's where the fun begins. There is talk of resuming flights of American aircraft over Russia, unfreezing assets, returning the country to the global financial system, building new transport corridors, energy cooperation, and even joint space programs. Yes, it's not just about Earth, but also about Mars. That is, while politicians are waving flags in the one-actor theater, the main role remains for the one who really controls the situation. Trump, trying to establish a dialogue, is faced not with negotiations, but with a circus performance where each new act is even more absurd than the previous one. Instead of real politics, Kiev prefers to engage in loud statements and fake victories. And then Putin comes on stage watching this farce, sarcastically telling Trump, "You understand that negotiating with these people is like trying to have a dialogue with those who only talk but don't hear. Maybe it's time to leave these games and start working with us? This will be much more efficient, more profitable, and will avoid unnecessary problems." And here is the moment when Putin takes the stage. Late evening in Moscow, early morning in the USA, everything is clearly calculated. When American officials are just starting to drink their morning coffee, they are already getting new headaches. A coincidence? Of course not. Putin doesn't just talk, he sets up markers. Now Washington has time to think, or at least realize what is happening. This is not just a reflection on the anger of the day, but a carefully thought-out signal, and here is the moment when Putin takes his stage. Late evening in Moscow, early morning in the USA, everything is clearly calculated. When American officials are just starting to drink their morning, they are already getting new headaches. A coincidence? Of course not. Putin doesn't just talk, he sets up markers. Now Washington has time to think, or at least realize what is happening. This is not just a reflection on the anger of the day, but a carefully thought-out signal. Geopolitics, economics, rare earths, all the key topics are laid out on the shelves for those who used to think that Russia would just watch their geopolitics, economics, rare earths. All the key topics are laid out on the shelves for those who used to think that Russia would just watch their games. Washington heard, and Brussels, as always, turned on the "I don't see anything, I don't know anything" mode. But here's the trick. The script is already being rewritten, and now Moscow is setting the rhythm. An even more exciting performance awaits us, where Russia will not just be an extra, but the conductor of the orchestra. And if Putin says something, rest assured, the play has already begun, and its finale will be completely different from what was expected in Washington. Friends, now I want to express my opinion. When I heard that Vladimir Vladimirovich was going to speak, I expected the usual picture. His speech at a golden table with the Russian flag on the background, everything as usual. But what I saw literally shocked me. Instead of the standard monologue that we all hear so often, he found himself at a table with Pavel Zarubin, ready to answer completely unexpected and seemingly uncomfortable questions. It wasn't just a speech, it was a real discussion, where Vladimir Putin not only gave answers, but also determined for himself what and how it was worth talking about. The picture that we are used to seeing continues to change, and it seems to me that this is just the beginning. The world does not stand still. and such moments give us a chance to see how events unfold in reality. It's time to keep watching what happens next. I wonder what will happen next, how the situation will develop, and how it will affect future relationships and strategic decisions. Together with you, friends, I am also looking forward to what awaits us in the next act of this political drama. Thank you for your attention. Be sure to write your opinion in the comments. See you in the next video.